Hi everyone, my name is Tessa and today's Tuesday, which means it's time to discuss our book of the week, which is The Shadow Between Us by Tricia Levenseller. First, this is a spoiler-free section, so if you haven't read this book yet, don't worry about it won't be spoiled for you here. There will be some spoiler-related things that I want to discuss, but that'll be later on in the video and you will get plenty of warning. If you'd like to join in on any of the book discussions, send me your thoughts, comments, or even a short video clip of you discussing the book, then I'll list the next upcoming 4 books in the description below. I actually really enjoyed this one. I rated it 4.5 stars, and yes, I am aware that I have probably rated books that are technically better written way lower than this, but I don't know, I go off of vibes, not literary snobbery, and this book just delivered exactly what I wanted when I picked it up. This is one of the very few standalone romance fantasies I've ever read, simply because standalone fantasy is pretty rare, and so by nature I think this book was probably a lot simpler than I'm used to. It doesn't spend 300 pages world building and setting up for the next book. It doesn't get bogged down into info dumping. It just throws you into this world very quickly, and I did enjoy that. The concept was fun and the pacing was very quick. The writing was incredibly easy to follow. I think that if romance fantasy had a palate cleanser book, it would be this one. I flew through it. Okay, so quick summary. This book follows Alessandra, who's decided that she's going to woo the Shadow King, marry him, and then she's going to kill him and take his kingdom. But of course things don't go to plan. It's morally grey meets morally grey, power balancing power, and a romance around 2 characters that you can't help but root for. If I had to compare this to any other book, I would probably say something like the Powerless trilogy. I think that it has a very similar vibe, morally grey characters, and it's a much lighter fantasy. I might also say Once Upon a Broken Heart because it's very easy to read, whimsical and dramatic, but I'd still say that this book has even less world building and complexity than either of those 2 books. It's very straightforward. I liked the characters, not because they were good, but because they weren't. It really lent into this morally grey, self-serving characters who make questionable choices, and honestly, I think it made it quite entertaining. They were charming, ruthless, and a little bit unhinged. The writing was simple, the concept was simple, and the plot wasn't layered with endless subplots, and yet it still really worked. Like, not every fantasy needs to be dark academia level dense. Sometimes you just want fun, fast, romantic chaos, and I think that this one did a really good job. So, as for the question, would I recommend the book? I don't think it would become one of my go-tos for recommending to people. Despite rating it so highly, I specifically enjoyed it, but I'm also aware that it did lack some of the elements that I do really enjoy in a romance fantasy. That said, I absolutely would if you're specifically looking for something that is fantasy light, easy to binge, and morally grey without being emotionally devastating, something that is enjoyable but yet really chill at the same time. So will I be reading any more by Tricia Levenseller? Yes, and actually I found out that there's another standalone set in this same universe but around different characters, and I'll absolutely be adding it to my TBR. So earlier on in the video I said that you would get plenty of warning for any upcoming spoilers. Now this is that moment, so if you haven't read this book yet, I would suggest going doing that first, because beyond this point there will absolutely be spoilers. So first of all, I really liked how unapologetically morally grey Alessandra is, especially in the beginning. She gives sort of villain energy with her plan to woo, marry and kill the Shadow King and take his kingdom with zero hesitation, zero guilt, and yet somehow you still root for her character. And then there's the Shadow King, who is mysterious and powerful, and yet oddly sweet once you peel back those layers, but he's still quite morally grey. It was also quite fun seeing these 2 schemers essentially trying not to fall for one another while very much falling for each other. I think that the relationship dynamic worked quite well because it wasn't soft or innocent. It was 2 quite dangerous people whose motives aligned and realised that actually they're stronger together despite literally cancelling out his power. Like, I like the fact that it was romantic without pretending that either of them were morally pure. The pacing was fast, maybe even too fast in some places, but I think that this is why it works better as a standalone. I think had it been something like a trilogy, I think certain elements like court dynamics, politics, assassination attempts, and maybe even the romance would have been stretched unnecessarily, and this way it stayed all really nice and tight and fun. I think that the ending was really satisfying. It was dramatic and it was neatly wrapped up, and it gave you the sort of resolution that you want in a standalone. It gave you enough closure while still making you want to sort of read another book in that world. The plot was simple and the twists were predictable, but I didn't care because I think it was just a really fun read. But let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy the book? Next week, we're discussing Make Me a Monster by Kalynn Bayron, so don't forget to get your thoughts and comments in before Sunday the 7th of December at the latest to be a part of the discussion. You can now do this on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram or Discord. The following week, we'll be discussing Chase Me, but don't forget if you do need a little bit longer to read a book, we do now list the next 4 books down below, along with the discussion dates. That way you can choose the genre that best suits you, and the best time frame to read it in. Thank you all for joining, and if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, it's always appreciated, and I will see you next week. Bye! If you like romance, fantasy, or even thriller, basically anything fiction book related, then I suggest you head on over to the channel's intro video, where you can find out more information on how you can take part in this online book club. We announce books at least 4 weeks in advance, and we accept your bookish feedback in a wide manner of ways. Post your comment below video, send in a voice note, or even send me a short video clip of you discussing the book. Alternatively, you can just send me a direct message.